Authorities in Ukraine have said dozens of people, including children, have been killed in the latest wave of Russian shelling, just as both sides meet in a border location for talks. But already the Ukrainian side is playing down hopes of a breakthrough. Well, intense fighting has continued in several locations, but Ukrainian fighters have been putting up a fierce resistance to the invading force. 5 days into Russian offensive against its neighbour, and some military analysts are suggesting that Vladimir Putin's assault isn't going to plan.
As the Russian invasion of Ukraine enters its 5th day, the Ukrainian Emergency Ministry released a video showing damaged buildings and destruction from last night. According to a statement released by the ministry, shelling hit a residential building, a building at the central market and a kindergarten, although no casualties were reported. The Ukrainian president has announced further plans to defend the country.
Ukrainians with real combat experience will be released from custody and will be able to compensate for their guilt in the hottest spots of war.
Meanwhile, visuals of a baby boy born in the basement of a Ukrainian hospital went viral over the weekend. In a statement, the hospital said shootings were happening near the hospital in residential areas, and the baby was born in conditions far from what a newborn deserves. The UN Refugee Agency estimates that more than 500,000 people have fled Ukraine since Russia invaded the country last week. Crossing the border into Romania, dozens of tents have been set up with refugees given food and shelter by the Red Cross on arrival. And at the border with Poland, exhausted women and children cross over, wearing winter coats to protect them against the near-freezing temperatures. Lviv's main railway terminal today filled with thousands more people hoping to flee to Europe or other parts of Ukraine not yet touched by the conflict seen in much of the country. Cleona Russell, Virgin Media News.
Well, as we've heard, talks are underway between Ukrainian and Russian negotiators. Ukraine is demanding an immediate ceasefire and the withdrawal of all Russian troops. Well, the president has also called on the European Union to admit his country immediately. In Russia, there's warnings of a run on the banks there as its currency, the ruble, plunges in value on the back of tough new global sanctions.
Time to talk under the shadow of an ever-raging war and a nuclear threat. Ukrainian and Russian delegations arrived for talks on Monday on Ukraine's border with Belarus under no preconditions. Ukraine have claimed the talks as a victory in itself, yet have been pessimistic on what, if anything, can be achieved. Tensions ahead of the talks were ratcheted up by Vladimir Putin as he ordered Russia's deterrent forces, including nuclear weapons, to high alert. However, the effect of swift and severe sanctions on Russia are beginning to be felt in Moscow and beyond. The ruble plunged to a record low on Monday as the Russian central bank more than doubled interest rates in a desperate attempt to shore up the currency and prevent a run on banks. The generally unified reaction of the international community to Russia's invasion has seen multiple norms and taboos broken, as the EU will now provide €500 million of lethal arms and assistance to Ukraine, as well as non-lethal supplies.
Yes, they are unprecedented times, because the war is back in our borders, and that's why it is a defining moment for the European history.
Ireland will constructively abstain and not pay for lethal equipment in line with its neutrality, instead paying towards non-lethal materials such as fuel. And while fighting rages on in Ukraine, the streets of its capital Kyiv remain relatively quiet. However, even as talks continue, the threat of further escalation remains on the horizon. Rob O'Hanrahan, Virgin Media News.